Hello, super fifth graders. This is another of the videos about fractions that we're talking about. And in this one, we're using the Geo board still. If you remember, I can make a smaller board or a larger board by using this tool ribbon at the bottom. And I'm going to use the larger board now. If you watched the previous video, then you know how important it is for us to establish a whole. That is to say, determine in advance what the whole is going to be represented by. And I'm going to do that by making my whole right here. And so I'm going to call this one whole. By the way, I forgot I need to add in my lines and my numbers, so that helps me a lot. I'm going to now shade in. So I'm going to label this now. Labels are super important. You always have to label the one whole so that you know what is equal to one whole. And it also helps your reader understand what is one whole. And so I'm going to put this right there. And I'm going to say, okay, done with that. Let me put it in place. So now I've labeled the whole. So I know what the value of a whole is. I'm going to use my red. Now, what value is this? So remember, before I know what value this is, I have to compare it to the whole. So I'm going to look at this square and ask myself, how many of those squares would it take for me to fill up this whole piece right here? And I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there must be 12 of those. So it must take 12 red squares to fill up that yellow rectangle. So that means that, let's see, the red square, I think, let's see, I think I'm right to say this is equal to 1/12 because 12 equal pieces make a whole. Yay. That one was pretty easy for me. Now I'm starting to get used to this. Let's see, I'm going to label it and put it right here. Okay. So this piece is equal to 1/12 because 12 equal pieces make a whole. Okay, so if that's the case, then what value is this? This piece now has a value, and I'm comparing it to this right here. So let's see. I'm going to label that now using my labeling technique. Sorry, I messed up. And I'm going to say that's equal to 2/12 because it is two pieces each with a value of 1/12. Okay, so I've got that. That's actually a harder idea. I want to spend some time talking about that. So, okay, let's look at that. I'm going to put it in place here. So I'm saying that the purple, if you can imagine, I'm going to take this guy right here. You don't have to imagine, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to cover it with one of the red squares, and then I could make another copy of a red square. And now you can easily see that two red squares completely cover the purple rectangle. So that means the two red squares must be equal to 2/12. Let me label that a little better. I think I can do a better job of labeling it like this. So let me put one label of 1/12 in place. And let's see. And I'll try to make this a little better. I'm going to use, I think I'm going to use, instead of using the text editor, I'm going to use the equation editor. I think you'll see why in a minute. If I say 1/12 here and done, it makes it into a much easier to place. I'm going to turn it into yellow though, because that's easier to read. And then let me move it up into place. Now that's equal to 1/12. And I'm going to also put 1/12 right there. So notice if we started, and I think it's a good idea maybe to label this right here. If we started with 1/12, you can see that this purple box, and I'm going to put our purple rectangle back in place, just so we can now look at one below here. This is the purple rectangle. And I want to know what is the value of that purple rectangle. And so I am saying to you, oh, look at this. I am saying, okay, this has a value of 2/12. Because do you see that 2/12, the two 1/12 pieces perfectly cover that purple rectangle. And so the purple rectangle has a value of 2/12. And that's how we name pieces. So that's 2/12. But okay, so that was pretty easy maybe. Let me take that off and get rid of this. But now let me give another example. So what would the value of this piece be then? What would the value of that piece be? Well, I have to ask myself if I could make a copy of this, how many of these would fit on here? I'm going to say, okay, then that's, I think that's equal to 4/12 because because it is 4 pieces, each with a value of 1/12. Okay. I'm going to now whoops, sorry, messed up there. Let me move this guy over here so he's easier to read. So why am I saying that that guy is equal to 4/12? Well, this is the 1/12 piece right here. We already said that because there's 12 of them that would fit in the hole. And I'm saying that 4 of those could fit here. So I could actually, if I wanted to, I could take these and label each of those squares. Remember, each of these squares represents 1/12. The small squares, not the big square here. Not the blue square, but the red square. So that's 1/12. And let's see, this is also 1/12, isn't it? All right. So I'm saying that first I have to determine like what the smallest square value is. This right here, the smallest square value, I determine by comparing it to the whole. This is 1/12. And then this bigger rectangle here, I can compare to this by saying, well, how many of these does it take to cover that? It takes 2, so this is 2/12. And then I can also look at this one and say, well, how many of these small 1/12 pieces does it take to cover the bigger piece? And it takes 4 of them. So I would say this is equal to 4/12 because it is 4 pieces, each with a value of 1/12. All right, that's the way that you can name pieces. You have to find a smaller piece that you compare to the whole and then see how many smaller pieces fit in there. That's pretty simple. Thank you for listening.